Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to solo the Queenswalk encounter in Season of the Lost. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube that are just the pure gameplay of solo Queenswalk, but when I was trying it, I couldn't find any actual videos explaining the exact details of what to do. So that's what I'm going to try to clear up today, and hopefully you'll be able to beat solo Queenswalk knowing the exact tips and tricks to make each attempt consistent. So in this video, I'm going to assume you know the basics of how to solo Queenswalk, but if not, I'll give a quick overview of how it works. Basically, you're going to want to launch yourself with the heart using Prospector, so that the heart is in the middle of Riven's mouth, meaning it's easier to grab. Once you respawn, you want to throw a glacier nade towards where the enemies spawn in, and then go backwards, grab the heart, go to the enemy spawn location, and then hopefully the enemies will spawn into that ice or melee it, so that it spawns a diamond lance, and you're going to want to pick up the diamond lance, and that resets your heart. It drops the heart for you, which means for the rest of the run you're just going to be alternating between holding the heart and diamond lances, and just spawning more and more by throwing your diamond lance. Now don't worry, I'll be going into greater detail on where to throw your grenade, where to shoot the prospector, and other specific details needed for the start of each run later in the commentary of the gameplay. Alright, so for the loadout, you're going to want to obviously be on Behemoth and Prospector, but for weapons, I suggest an autoloading sniper such as Succession, just so you can shatter enemies at a long range, which can be very useful, so you're definitely going to want a sniper. And for the energy weapon does not matter quite as much. I like using salvagers just as another way to shatter the crystals, and so that I can kill myself without using heavy ammo when I'm setting my spawn location. Now for the subclass, you of course want Diamond Lance aspect, and then you definitely want Cryoclasm as your other aspect. This will let you slide into the heart and save time when you're running towards it and your debuff is ticking up. This will just overall be very useful, and you can also shatter the ice if you need it. Now for fragments, the main fragment you want to worry about is Whisper of Fissures, just so you have a bigger crystal burst when you're throwing your glacier grenade. And the other ones I used were just Whisper of Shards, so that I get my grenade back if the Diamond Lance expires, or Whisper of Torment just to get some more grenade energy, and Whisper of Chains, so I'd take less damage near the crystals. Now for your armor, you're going to want High Recovery, so that you regen your health quickly after you're damaged while holding the heart, and High Mobility, so that you move faster when holding the heart. Mobility is very useful here, since you do not count as sprinting when you're holding the heart, so you definitely get a big increase in movement when you're high mobility. Now for your exotic, I recommend using ACDO Feedback Fence, so that you deal damage back to the enemies that melee you while you're holding the heart. Now for specific mods, the helmet ones don't really matter that much. I have of course a mobility mod and taking charge. Now you definitely want fastball for your arms so that you can throw that initial grenade really far, and I have radiant light so that I proc powerful friends on my other piece of armor. Now for your chest piece, the resist mods, you definitely want arc resistance, since a lot of enemies are dealing arc damage, especially those phalanxes. Now you could either choose between melee or concussive for your other mod. I personally like concussive since it protects me against phalanxes and the fire that the knights attack you with. But melee is nice too. It kind of just depends on how you're dying, since sometimes all these scions will just stack up and melee you. But just make sure you have arc resist on. Now for legs, as you see I have the Greaves of the Great Hunt, because you want to have Taken Barrier. This mod is probably the most important mod, since it's 20% less damage while you're in Last Wish against Taken. And for the other mods, I'm using Protective Light. Protective Light is very useful, although it is kind of hard to proc, so it's definitely more weak than Taken Barrier. Better Already is very nice for gaining some health when you pick up an orb. And for my mark, I'm using Powerful Friends just to increase my mobility. If you're at max mobility, you don't really need this, but my Titan didn't really have enough stats. And I'm also using Taken Repurposing, which is another Last Wish mod. This one's not too essential, but if my Diamond Lance ran out of time and I didn't have my grenade, this can be useful since I can take out a shield and instantly get my Glacier Grenade back. Alright, so to start, you want to set your spawn location in the front of Riven's mouth. Usually you'll do this between those two purple spiky circles. You can also set your spawn location on Riven's tongue, although I find it a bit inconsistent, and this works just as well. To set your spawn, simply sit here for a bit. You could put up your barricade or emotes or just walk around a bit. It should set your spawn, as long as you kill yourself off to the side. The most reliable method I found was to walk out of Riven, go to the middle of the room, and then kill myself, and every time it would spawn me in the right spot. Sometimes there's other ways to get that spawn location easily, but I just found that the most consistent. After you get your spawn set, you're going to want to walk backwards and get ready to launch yourself with Prospector. Sometimes Riven does not choose you right away, so you gotta make sure you go to the back of the room so that you see that chat message and that buff that you're chosen to pick up the heart. Then you're gonna want to shoot 3 Prospector, as I found that launching yourself with 5 Prospector is the most consistent way to do it to make sure you don't launch yourself too far. Alright, so here's where one of the toughest parts of the beginning of the run is, making sure you can consistently launch yourself the right way with Prospector. Now, normally, Prospector's hipfire crosshair thing has 3 lines here. There's a few different ways you can launch yourself successfully from the heart, but the one I use, basically what you want to do is you get this middle line here, and you want to line it up right below this line on the heart. So it's pretty tough to understand without actually being in front of the heart, since the heart is very detailed. But basically there's always going to be this dark line towards the tip of the heart. The heart extends down here, it's on like the upper third of the heart. You want to line up that middle line of the crosshair right below this dark line, where it goes from dark to lighter on the heart. The actual look of the heart will always be the same, so this doesn't actually shift except for like the taken bits. So that's how I consistently am able to launch myself, say 9 times out of 10. Using this method, I always know where to line up Prospector. Otherwise, if you don't have a specific spot to aim on the heart, it can be a bit more random and you might not get it every time. Alright, so once you're lined up on the heart, you're ready to fire Prospector. But be careful, you don't want to just hold down the trigger. You want to make sure that all the Prospector shots land in the exact same spot, meaning you're going to be slowly dragging your mouse downward to compensate for recoil. Now to actually launch yourself after you've placed the grenades, you want to release left click the instant you fully interact with the heart. It can be some pretty tough timing, but you should be able to get it if you just release left click and pick up the heart at the exact same time. You want to aim towards releasing left click before you fully interact, just because that'll be more likely to pick up the heart and bring it with you, rather than if you release left click too late, it'll launch you and kill you, but it'll leave the heart at the spawn, which you really don't want. Now ideally you should have launched the heart past that first hill and respawned at that previously set spawn location. Now comes another difficult part for the beginning, throwing the glacier grenade. What I usually try to do is I look at this light in the distance. It should be the furthest light to the right. There's another light that's more to the left, but don't worry about that one. It should just be the one you can see furthest to the right. I line up the crosshair of Prospector and do it a bit to the right of it and a bit upwards. Now ideally it's very dark, but you can see there's a pillar here in the room. That's kind of where the enemies spawn, behind this pillar. So you're trying to throw your glacier grenade right about here to where the enemies spawn in. So once you throw your grenade, you want to go backwards as fast as possible so that you have the most time before your glacier grenade despawns. Melee or slide into the heart to save some time, then backtrack until you reach the halfway point on that first hill of Riven's mouth. This is where the enemies spawn in. That's what triggers them. Then continue forward out Riven's mouth until you reach your glacier grenade. Hopefully you should have time to pick up the diamond lance that enemies spawn in. Now sometimes this can be a bit inconsistent. Even though the enemies spawn slightly randomly, the main factor that messes up your glacier grenade will be your timing. You want to be very fast so that it has the most time before it despawns and the most time for enemies to melee it. So as long as you throw it in the right spot, you should be able to get a diamond lance most times. The only randomness will be whether phalanxes push you off the heart. Sometimes you get really unlucky and all the phalanxes are right there and you just can't reach the heart. If you successfully pick up the lance, you want to super as soon as you can so that you don't die and clear as many enemies as possible. You'll want to aim for the phalanxes in the time that you have because they're the ones that will deal the most damage with their axion darts and shield blasts. But make sure you don't run out of time on the heart, so only stay in your super for a few seconds. After you clear the first room, it's just rinsing and repeating of throwing the lance, spawning another lance, and picking the heart back up. For this next room, you're going to have to hit the phalanxes from pretty far away, so make sure they're spawned in before you pick up your lance, and snipe them from far away so that they shatter as soon as possible. You'll want to try to snipe as many phalanxes as you can, regardless of whether they all drop diamond lances or not. This is because they all try to push you off the lances, so it's nice to have only one. As you can see here, I almost don't make it because of how many phalanxes were left alive. There's a slightly tough part here too. You want to make sure you spawn the next diamond lance as close to the next doorway as possible. That'll maximize your time that you can aim for the next phalanxes in the room. Remember to always wait for the diamond lance cooldown before picking up one, just to be safe. And also just take out as many phalanxes as you can to minimize getting pushed. Be careful with this next part. You want to make sure you spawn in the enemies while you're holding the heart, and then go back to grab the lance. That way it maximizes the time you have to run back to the heart when aiming the lance. Now one of the toughest parts of the run is in the secret rooms in the vault encounter. You want to attract the knight that you spawn in to follow you into the rooms. That way you can keep him following you to the very end of the tunnel where you can spawn more diamond lances simply by shattering him. You don't have to kill him, you just need to shatter the ice when you freeze him. This will allow you to set kind of some more checkpoints aside from the one phalanx that spawns in the tunnel. The second tunnel is not as bad, and as long as you reset your diamond lances on the scions, you should be fine for the rest of the run. For some overall tips to save time on the run, make sure you're as far from the lance as possible when picking it up. This will mean you take the heart as far as it can go because you're dropping it as far from the lance as possible. Another one is to take your time. Remember, you have a lot of time before the game will drop the heart from you. The only part where you have to be really fast is when you're holding the lances, so feel free to kill as many enemies as you want to spawn in tons of lances. Just remember to always watch out for the diamond lance cooldown. Anyways, that pretty much sums up all the strategies you need to beat solo Queenswalk in the most consistent way. If you have any questions or found this video helpful, let me know in the comments and I'm sure I'll answer them. Thanks for watching.